Welcome back to NC Bass, and today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to rank the top 5 lakes that I fish. I haven't fished a ton of lakes. I've only fished 9 lakes in the local area. I fished James, Rodas, Hickory, Lookout, Norman, and Mountain Island in the Catawba chain. And I fished Scott, High Rock Lake, and Baden on the Yakin chain. I need to branch out and fish some more. I mean, you guys, let me know what your favorite lake in North Carolina is, and I might go try to fish it. I mean, let me know what you guys think your favorite lake is, and I might try to go make a video there. Need to branch out and fish some more lakes. I know there's some good lakes around here that I haven't fished, but number 5, in my opinion, is Lake James. It has smallmouth. I mean, that's why it's on the list. There's a few. Scott's got a little bit of smallmouth. I mean, you can even catch smallmouth on Lake Norman every once in a while. They're rare, though. I mean, there's definitely smallmouth in Lake Hickory, but they're like 1 in a million. But there's a good population of smallmouth in Lake James. At least for now, there's spots in there. There's some big smallmouth caught out there, too. I mean, a 7.3 pounder was caught last spring. I mean, there's some big smallmouth in that lake. A lot of 3 and 4 pound smallmouth. The unfortunate thing is it's a clear, deep water mountain lake, and you gotta really use light line a lot of times to catch fish. But I mean, there's awesome views and stuff. I mean, the mountains are right there. Very beautiful lake. Not a ton of docks. I mean, it's different. It's definitely different fishing for me. I mean, a lot of steep banks and a lot of deep humps out there. I mean, there's some big. You kind of need Panoptics fish there, if you ask me. But I went there, caught a 2.5 smallmouth, my PB on a rock crawler, and one on a jerkbait. Then I really couldn't get a bite. It was like the first day it got into the 80s. Spawn, the water temperature was like 68, 70 degrees, and sight fish one good largemouth. I mean, I fished all day. Didn't know what I was doing really, but I mean, you can crank there, but it's a lot of finesse fishing. You can throw a jig too. I mean, there's a lot of lay downs on that lake you can fish. There's definitely a lot of good size largemouth in that lake too. A lot of 3+ pound largemouth. I mean, a lot of even 5 pounders. Probably gets less pressure than any of the lakes I'm going to have on this list, but it does get. It's still, they have tournaments up there. It does get a lot of pressure. If you want to catch smallmouth in North Carolina, I would definitely recommend that lake. It's probably the best lake in North Carolina to catch smallmouth. Good population. There's spotted bass in there too. I mean, you got 3 species of bass you can catch. You can get the bass slam there. Unfortunately, the spotted bass might hurt the smallmouth population. But I mean, meanmouth, half smallmouth and half spotted bass, they get even bigger. So I mean, you might catch a giant meanmouth out there. There's a lot of meanmouth in that lake. Number 4 on my list is High Rock Lake. I mean, there's some giants in that lake. I've only been twice. First time I went, I got skunked. So, I mean, there's not a ton of fish in there. I see tournament results like BFLs, like half the field's skunks. I mean, there's not a ton of bass in there, but there's some giants. And the water stays, I mean, it's the opposite of Lake James. It stays dingy. It's usually a muddy lake. These fish are up shallow. There's tons of laydowns, tons of cover, good bit of docks. Not like Norman, but there's still a bunch of docks, ton of laydowns. You can go upriver in the current. To me, it seems like a slow fishing lake. The fish slow, like the soak jig, or everybody says a black trickworm with a shaky head on dock post. But there's some giants in that lake. And I mean, you can catch them cranking because it's stained water. I mean, it's definitely a good crankbait lake too. I went there the second time last year. It was a perfect day. I mean, it was right when the fish were pulling up the spawn, and caught a big one on a popper. Fished all day, didn't get a ton of bites though. Caught some males, but lost like a 6 or 7 pound giant one on the wacky rig right at the boat. Well, of course, I went through a laydown. But it's hard to get. You better be ready to fight a fishing because there's laydowns everywhere. You hook a fish, there's a good chance it'll get caught in a brush pile or something. There's a giants in that lake. I mean, a 10.4 pounder was caught like a week ago out of there. I mean, if you want to catch a fish over 5 pounds on this list, that's probably the lake to go to. I'm definitely ready to get back to that lake. It's awesome. I mean, I'm gonna go in the spring if you catch one, you know it can be a big one. It's really not that far from my house. I need to fish it more, but I know I hate getting skunked, and it's a lake you can definitely get skunked at, but there's some giants in there. Number 3 on the list is Mountain Island Lake. I know a lot of guys do not like this lake. For some reason, I just got lucky last year and went at the right time, and there was big fish pulling up on beds everywhere. I mean, I just went at the right time, but I need to go more. It's not that far. I mean, I go to Norman all the time. It's just right down the interstate a little bit further. But, I mean, to most people, it's known as a dink lake. Which, I mean, I like to catch fish. I mean, a lot of guys just like to hunt big fish, but I just want to get bites. So it's a good lake, but it also has more largemouth than Norman, if you ask me. And there's, obviously, I caught the biggest fish I've ever caught of a lake, a 588 out there. It was skinny, 23-inch, huge bass on a popper. And I caught a 3 and a 4 pounder that day, too, off close to the beds, or sight fishing, kind of, sort of. But that big one was just a female near a bed. The big fish are in there. They're just hard to catch. It's full of spots. I mean, there's tons of spots in that lake. It's not as bad as Norman though, but I mean, you're going to get bites there. I mean, it depends on where you go, but there's largemouth. To me, I think it's probably 60% spots and 40% largemouth. I was saying 50-50, but the spots are taking over. And it's a numbers lake. I mean, guys go there and catch 30, 40 fish. It's kind of like Norman with numbers, but there's also bigger fish in there. At least maybe I just got lucky last year, but it's really current driven. That's the thing with that lake. You need to go when they're pulling current. It's a small lake and it's shaped like a river. I mean, when the current's pulling, they're biting. If they're not, it might be tough, but you can catch a lot of fish and you can catch some good sized fish too. Number 2 on my list of top 5 lakes is Lake Norman. I know you guys probably get sick of me fishing Lake Norman all the time, but Lake Norman's just plumb full of bass. I mean, there's spotted bass all in that lake. It probably per square acre, it has the most fish. Or at least it seems like it. And the fish are aggressive. It gets beat to death. I mean, there's tournaments out of it all the time. I mean, it's getting fished 24/7. But the fish still bite. You can still catch numbers. I mean, you'll have like the Big Bass Tour tournament there, and everybody's catching 30 fish. I mean, and there's like 800 boats out there, and everybody can catch 30 fish. I mean, they're biting somewhere all the time. Bites, and Norman's a place you can get bites. I mean, there might not be the biggest fish, but you can catch them any way you want to at Norman. That's why I put it number 2. It's so hard to catch a 5-pound bass out of that lake. I mean, I've only done it twice since recently. I mean, you guys know I fish that lake once a week pretty much for the last 4 or 5 years. But if you want to catch 20 bass, that's the lake to go to. If you want to catch 30, 40 bass, that's the lake to go to. It's full of fish. Probably has more bass than any other lake in North Carolina. It's plumb full of fish, and you can catch them any way you want to. I mean, you can finesse fish down south. I mean, there's still big fish. I mean, there's big spots down south too. Or you can go up in the muddy river and, I mean, flip lily pads or something, catch them on a frog. I mean, and you catch fish on every part of the lake. I mean, you can catch them cranking somewhere. There's a ton of rock. There's a lot of steep banks. I mean, ton of riprap. There's docks everywhere. If you're going to fish Norman, you got to fish docks. I mean, I hate fishing docks, but you can still catch them on riprap. I mean, you name it, you can catch them anyway. I mean, there's hot water discharge. I mean, you can catch them on top water in wintertime. There's any way you want to fish, you can find a way to catch them there at Norman. Bad thing about Norman is it's hard to get a pattern. Spotted bass are strange, and there's so many different conditions. I mean, spotted bass don't really want to, they're just random as can be. And the pattern on Norman usually is there's no pattern. I mean, especially spring and winter, you can get a good pattern going, but you can fire a cast out in the middle of the lake and catch a big spot. I mean, the spots kind of make it hard to pattern. I feel like largemouth pattern are way better than spots. And I would say it's probably 80%, maybe 90% spot. There's more largemouth in that lake than you think, but there's a ton of spots. There's way more spots. Supposedly they're taking over and they're going to outcompete the largemouth, but they just stocked the F1 bass. They're half Florida strain and half northern strain largemouth. So hopefully that'll help the size. If Norman had big largemouth, it would be the best lake in the southeast, if you ask me. I mean, if you could catch 10-pounders out there, that lake would be awesome. I love Norman. I know you guys get sick of me fishing Norman, but there's tournaments every day on that lake, so if you can get good at fishing Norman, you can win money. And a lot of good pros have cut their teeth on Norman and learned how to fish. If you're going to pick a lake to get good at in the local area, that's the lake to get good at, because there's a lot of money fished out of that lake. If you just want to catch a bunch of fish, you go to Norman. That's why I put it number 2 on the list, but it's just lacking in the big fish, but there's some big fish in there too. But number 1, my favorite lake to fish is Baden Lake. Baden Lake is awesome. I mean, it's the type of fishing is way different. It's full of water willow. There's a bunch of rock. It's deep. I mean, there's some current. I mean, there's tons of different ways to fish. The grass is what I really like. I mean, it looks kind of like a little bit swampy. I mean, it's not like Santee Cooper, but it's just, compared to Norman and all the Catawba chain lakes, I'm not used to seeing that much grass, and it's awesome. I mean, catch them on a frog is probably my favorite way to catch them. That's a great way to catch them there. It's been getting beat up a lot lately. Apparently that lake used to be way better, but there's some giants in Baden. It probably has more 4 and 5 pounders in it than any lake that I mentioned. I mean, it's full of good sized fish, and they're all really healthy. I mean, real fat fish. It's just full of grass, and I mean, there's big fish in there, as you guys can see. It seems like the average fish out there is like 2 pounds, and there's good numbers too. And I really feel like these fish stay shallow. I mean, I'm sure you can fish deep too. There's tons of rock, and it's kind of mountainous for how east it is. I mean, it's deeper than Norman, and there's tons of big boulders and big rock, but it's full of grass and laydowns. It's definitely got docks. There's definitely a bunch of docks you can fish, but way less than Norman. And there's just tons of different cover you can fish. I mean, you got riprap, you got docks, you got grass, you got big boulders. And I feel like all the lakes on the list, these fish feed on bluegill more than any other lakes. I mean, I think that's why these all that grass, there's tons of bluegill. At least when I was there, I seen bluegill everywhere. I mean, I think these fish just get really fed up on bluegills. There's definitely shad. There's huge striper in that lake too. I mean, there's definitely offshore fish too. I'm definitely wanting to fish it more. It's a good ways away from my house. I mean, it's like an hour and a half, like Lake James away. But I like it so much, I definitely want to fish it more and catch them on topwater frog. Just fishing the grass is awesome. I just never get to fish grass, and it reminds me of some of the ponds I fish. Water willow is great for largemouth. There's definitely some 7-8 pounders. I mean, I think High Rock's got a little bit of more giants, but that's my favorite lake. Baden, these are just my opinion. Everybody fishes different. I mean, a lot of you guys would probably put Curscott or Lake Hickory at #1, and a lot of people hate Lake Norman because the fish are small and they don't want to catch little tiny 1-pounders. These are just in my opinion. I mean, I'm wanting to fish some more lakes this year. I'd love to get to Jordan. Jordan Lake has giant bass. I would like to, it's a good ways away, but Randleman I've never fished. It's got some huge fish in there too, but it seems like it's tough. And Florida stream bass, they get big, but they're kind of finicky. It seems like it's tough to catch numbers there, but there's definitely some huge fish in that lake. I definitely want to get to Tuckertown this year, maybe Tillery. They're not too far. I'd like to fish those two. Maybe Wiley. Guys, let me know what you think your favorite lake that I haven't fished. Let me know in the comments that I need to fish this year. Be back at Norman tomorrow for a Tuesday tournament. It's supposed to be like 68 degrees for a high tomorrow, so that should help them bite. But thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on NC Bassin'.